Right, so we're going to start again with the projected images. Slightly concerned about the projector because as you gather it was very bright for the prints. But it's been tweaked, so we'll see how it goes. Now, this is a watchful eye. So you've got your mother duck and the duckling. The mother duck swimming away from us, and the duckling is coming towards us. And you know, it's perhaps not the best view of the mother duck, looking at her backside, and it's actually not sharp, the back feathers. So not ideal. I think I might have just cropped down a little bit on the right-hand side to sort of centre the mother and her duckling. But this image got 15 points. Now this is beach reflections, and this grew in me as I began to look at it more and more. And I think it's Ardrossan, is it? With a church right in the middle, and then you've got beach, you've got the sand, ridges in the sand, and the nice thing is the ridges are just taking your eye in from the right towards the church and from the left towards the church. It's a letterbox format, which I think works well. You wonder, should the church have been in the thirds, but cropping it there, you'd have then lost this sand here, and away, you'd have lost this bit. So I think it's well presented the way it is, and beach reflections gets 18 points. This is called Skag Sandon. I think this is on the west coast of the Lofoten Islands, and it's been taken at just after sunrise. The sun's coming from the right here. You've got the range of mountains in the distance and the stones in the foreground, and the water just moving in and out of the stones. I think it's a bit, forgetting the projector, as I saw it in my desktop, I feel it was just a little overexposed. I think just reducing the exposure a bit just makes this area just a bit more interesting, and you can see reflections in the water. I thought the rocks I didn't particularly like. It's good to have a foreground, but I think it's maybe the shutter speed's not just ideal. And Skagson gets 16 points. Eyes down. Now, this is just again a sort of street photography type of shot. Did the people know they were getting their photograph taken? Was it a setup? Presumably not. And the more I looked at this image, again, the more I liked it, because they're all looking at their phones. And what's nice is that her head's up, looking at her phone. She's a little bit further forward, looking down. He's a little bit further forward, and she's right down, almost at her face is almost at her phone. So that you're seeing all four characters all bending forward, and none are overlapping. So I like that. Background, the rest of the background's just a bit distracting, and it might have been better to try and darken some of that out. But Eyes Down gets 17 points. And this is called Boys from the Hood. Presumably a set-up shot. Quite a brave photographer, I think, going and asking if, can I take your photograph? And they might have responded in a different way, but instead they're posing, and they're all posing in different ways, which I think is great. The background is neutral, non-distracting. They all seem to fit into each other. Arms up, this chap kicking this chap on the right. The only thing against it is very bright sun coming from overhead. The shadows are just right underneath. So I think that just, the lighting could have been better. But nice composition, and Boys from the Hood get 17 points. This is called Bridge to Cameo Island. And I think this island is just off one of the other islands, a larger island in Greece. So this is an early morning shot with the sun just coming up, just catching the side of the island and nicely lighting up the bridge here. Again, as I saw it on my desktop, I felt it was just a little overexposed. I think just reducing the exposure just brings out so even nicer colours on the bridge and on this side of the island. What I do like is seeing through to the stones here. Maybe a polarizing filter has been used, so you're seeing through to the under the water to the stones. It annoyed me a little that the bottom of the crop wasn't taken from the bottom corner of this reflection of the bridge. But if you crop there, then you're losing the stones. So perhaps taking the shot, if you're taking the shot from higher up, looking down, you might have managed to get this into the corner and still kept seen through to the stones in the bottom. So perhaps it could have been improved in the taking, but reducing the exposure helps. Bridge to Cameo Island gets 16 points. This is a terrific image, chasing the ball. And you've got the dog, you've got the ball, all the paws, all off the ground. A terrific action shot of the dog chasing the ball. And the dog doesn't seem to be looking at the ball, the dog seems to be looking at the photographer. So really good shot, beautifully sharp, just losing it a little in the tail. It doesn't really bother me. All this is sharp. Again, the lighting is straight from above, so perhaps that's not quite so good. But chasing the ball get 19 points. This is called Lime Light. And the author's obviously trying to be creative here. He has the image of this chap has been altered to in some putting on layers. This looks like some sort of marble effect. You've got the lime or yellow colour coming in here, and then the actual face underneath, the head's been shrunk, so it's smaller than the overlying image. And I just wonder what would it have looked like if the head was the same size in this effect. I'm just not sure. I didn't particularly like this. I think it's good to try different things, but unfortunately the judge has got to like it. So in this case, it gets 15 points. And this is called The Hut in Winter. Good image, presumably, or could be taken in Norway or some such place where they tend to use these bright colours for their wooden huts and houses. You've got your lake, nice reflections in the lake, and ice in the lake as well, your foreground. Little bright, perhaps it could have been maybe shaded down a little on this side to help bring your eye into the centre. But really, I can't really criticise the image in any major way, but it's just not quite as strong as some of the images it's up against. So The Hut in Winter gets 16 points. And this is called Boo. Not quite sure why it's called Boo. It's a spider, nicely in focus. The whole thing's in focus, so again I wonder if focus stacking has been used. It seems to be lying on some sort of sawdust, a fairly non-distracting background. The more I looked at this, I realised something wasn't quite right. And if you look down the edges, the hairs on the legs are all very sharp, all over. But just beyond the hair, you've got an edge. You really should be seeing through the hair to the background sawdust or whatever it is. Here, you're seeing detail in the sawdust. Behind the hairs, you're not seeing the detail. And all over, you can see the same things happening. All over. You're not seeing through the sharp hairs to the sharp underlying structure. And you should be. So, again, I wonder if this is a problem of focus stacking. I've no idea, but that just lets it down a little, and Boo gets 15 points. This is a lovely image of Mont Saint-Michel. taken at night, but at a time when there's still some detail left in the sky. You've got the lovely lights on the structure of the buildings and over the village. The town itself, you have a highlight here that's flaring. You've got nice reflections. You've got this lovely lead-in from the right-hand side, taking you round up to the main island. And this image gets 20 points. Into the snow. The more I looked at this image, the more I liked it. Lovely, lovely light playing across these snow-covered mountains. And in fact, there's people lying, and just a group of people here, and further down, another couple, you can just make out another couple further down, and perhaps a path in this direction, just taking you in towards this nice light in the mountains. The sky has perhaps been darkened a little. I think I wasn't seeing it quite as dark as this on my desktop, but overall, nice image, simple image, playing with light in the mountains, scoring 17 points. Two birds. This is Goldfinch Bally. Nice title because it does look as though the birds are twisting. You know, I like the way this bird seems to be twisting underneath the one on top. Very often they're portrayed as fighting, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. Or maybe they are, but I like the title Bally, implying some sort of movement. They're beautifully sharp, perhaps just losing the tips of the wings. That doesn't bother me at all. And lovely colours in the birds, lovely detail in the birds. The one thing that's just not ideal is the background's a bit mottled, and you know that's the way it is. Difficult to do anything with that, but this falls down just a little because of that, and Goldfinch Bally 18 points. And this is called Glasgow Tenements. Fantastic mural on the side of the tenement, and it's a photographic image, but you know I assume it's not. I assume it's actually there, and you get a chap down here looking at it. Looking up at the image. So that's all nice. There's always a question with this sort of thing is that, you know, it's someone else's art, and that's true, it is. The other problem with this image is that this orange bus, the photographer has chosen to take the shot and the bus is there. And I feel that the two things are competing. The bus is competing with the image. And that just lets it down a little. So I think it might have been better waiting till even the lorry wasn't there and the bus wasn't there. But then there's always the question of someone else's art. But I did like it. But you get 15 points. This is called Harper. It's a studio shot. You know how you get your dog in the studio sitting up in this nice red cloth which matches the collar, lovely background going with the again a greyish background which the dog stands out well against, beautiful detail in the fur, a lovely image, studio shot, but still gets 20 points. This is called Hafen City. The Hafen City, I gather, is in Hamburg. Nice image taken just at dusk or after dusk, where there's some detail in the sky. All the buildings have lights on. You've got this canal and the lovely reflections, lovely colours in the whole image. I did like the colours. And Hafen City gets 17 points. Now this image is called Auntie Anne's. Auntie Anne's. Yeah, Auntie Anne's. This image grew on me. I really liked it. Lovely sky, lovely light from the sky reflected in this building. And this great subject, Anti-Annie, is just right in the middle. You've got people around about, they're rather dark, and this building on the right's rather dark. But despite that, I liked it. I think the image could be improved by bringing out the shadows, and either lightning in Photoshop or bringing out shadows in Lightroom, and it just helps to lift it. You get nice reflections from the sky and here. The only trouble in doing that is you see this chap more closely, and he seems to be standing right on the bottom of the image, so it's a pity we just didn't see a little bit below that. And there's another shadow here, someone else on the right-hand side. But I did like this image, and it got 19 points. This is London Eye view. Again, nice image, a nice balanced composition of your London Eye and the buildings on the right-hand side. I think the cranes, they help to balance it up because it gives you height on the right-hand side. But, cranes are perhaps a bit not the ideal thing for images. You'd rather lose them. But presumably the cranes are building, this must be a new structure here. And they do help the composition, the cranes, but perhaps not the ideal subject for an image. So taking the thing as a whole, lovely colours of sky, all sharp, and London Eye view gets 16 points. And this is called Head in the Clouds. Well, it's one of the Kelpies. It's sharp. It's been taken at dusk when the lights are on in the Kelpie. I think they changed the colour in the lights. I mean, this is almost monochromatic, the way it's been taken. And I have seen images with lovely colours. And I think the way it's presented, it's just a bit lacking in impact. It's such a common subject now. I think you just have to do something a bit different if you're going to show a Kelpie or the Kelpies. So for that reason, the image scores just 15 points. Kingfisher with catch. Another lovely kingfisher image. Lovely birds with the minnow in its mouth. Lovely diffuse background. The bird is right in the centre of the image. Would it have been better cropped? I presume it wasn't cropped because it's sitting on this perch. And I feel that it's that perch, that particular perch has got so much in it. It's just a little bit distracting from the bird. And I would rather see a perch, maybe something with the lichen and a bit of wood, but you've got your cone and you've got all these little green bits here. So I think that the perch just distracts a little bit from what you want. What you should be looking at is the kingfisher. But despite that, kingfisher with catch still gets 18 points. And this is Frozen in Time. An appropriate title. I guess it's somewhere like Cuba, where you've got your old car and lovely old buildings, a bit decrepit perhaps, but interesting nonetheless. The car is nicely composed within the background. The thing that I find just a bit distracting is my eye kept on going up to this chap in the corner. And it may have been better if he wasn't there. The other thing is that this blue door, tends to catch your eye and take your eye away from the car up to the door. So, you could perhaps have changed the colour of the door to something like, slightly yellowish. That might have been less distracting. So quite a nice image, but I think it could be improved. And Frozen in Time get 15 points. A fleeting moment. Well, it's the old buckle lettered moor, and the Glencoe Valley is down in this way, down to the right, and this has been taken late afternoon as the sun's very low and it's just coming up, and beautifully lighting up the cottage. So I think the author's done well to catch the sun in this position. Unless it's all been photoshopped, I mean, I suppose it's possible to take two different images, one in shadow and one in sunlight, and do this, but let's assume it's not been photoshopped. I think the author's done very well. Perhaps the background mountain is just a little, I'd like to just see a little bit more detail. There's maybe just too much dark occupying a large part of the image. But I did like it, and Fleeting Moment got 18 points. And this is entitled Marbles. It's a glass with marbles in it. I'm not sure whether, is this the bottom of the glass here? Is this solid glass that's keeping the marbles up? Or is this layer because fluids of different densities, perhaps a very viscous oil on the bottom with water on the top and the marbles piled up on top? I'm not sure. I can't, competing in this sort of competition, I think you just need a bit more. I just don't think a glass with marbles in it is enough. So marbles gets 15 points. This is Sabaroo River Crossing. You have your main subject looking at the photographer, beautifully isolated from the background because you have the groups of elephants, but he's nicely positioned just between these groups. And a little bit of weed coming out, a bit of sand, a nice composition. I think it might have been improved if a wider aperture was used, and this elephant was sharp, and the elephants in the background were just a little out of focus. It might have been nice just separating the two in that way. This background here does go out of focus, and that's fine, but all this is sharp. These trees are all sharp, and both these groups of elephants are sharp. So I think it just might have been improved a little with a wider aperture, but it still scores 16 points. And that's the end of the colour section.